The worst type of diet is the standard American diet. And there's 3 things in it that are just horribly destructive. So I'll give them an order from the worst to the best of the worst, right? So the number one thing that is wrong with the American diet is seed oils. These omega-6 oils. And canola, corn, soybean, safflower, sunflower, all the stuff that's in everything at the restaurant and most packaged foods at the grocery store, unless you buy from the right company. It's full of these oils. These are the oils that drive insulin resistance. Your body takes these oils, and they're all plant-based oils, and it says, I'm going to try to construct the outer layer of my mitochondria and my cells, these little batteries, but I have the wrong ingredients. So I'm going to make subpar batteries. Like if you go to the knockoff store and you buy the cheap batteries and they last a third as long as the good ones. That's what happens when you eat a lot of seed oils. Americans have about 40 times more of that oil in their systems than they should, and it gets built into your tissues. And that makes you weak. It is just not good. Second thing is industrially raised meat. It's full of xenoestrogens. These are estrogens that make animals fat on 1/3 less calories than normal. It's also full of antibiotics, and it's destroying the soil of the planet right now. Yeah. It also is depleting farmland when we take and we grow corn and soy and grain, and we don't actually put the animal poop back into the soil the way we do on my farm. What we're doing is we're sucking all the nutrients out of the soil, and we're creating a very, very big catastrophe. 60 years from now, we'll be out of topsoil because we stopped having animals walk around and poop on it the way it works when you're doing a regenerative agriculture kind of thing. But worst of all, you eat industrial animals, they're also full of cortisol. And so you do this, they mess up your gut bacteria, and they're full of glyphosate because it was on the feed, and glyphosate disrupts your gut bacteria, your nervous system activity, and is tied to cancer. And then the third thing would be sugar, right? If you have a ton of sugar, it's directly harmful. If you do the stuff I'm talking about, you can probably have a few grams of sugar and you won't notice. Like your body can handle it just fine. So sugar is not good for you, and it is addictive, but it is way better to eat sugar than it is to eat corn oil. So the worst diet of all is that one with lots of fried stuff and bad oils. But the second worst diet for people who think they're being healthy, this isn't going to be popular, but it is the vegan diet. There's 2 things. Okay, I was a devout raw vegan. Okay, I did this for more than a year. I mean, I have bowls as big as my head full of kale and blended and mashed and sprouted. And what happens there is your body doesn't get the essential fats that it needs. We are not made out of plant oils. And I have in my books, I talk about the studies that show when you change the type of oil you eat, it changes what your body is made of. So when you go on a plant-based diet, you're getting 2 things. You're getting plant-based oils, which are not very compatible with you. Vegans will get mad at me and say, Dave, we can convert plant omega-3s to the good ones. Yes, it takes 45 grams of bad omega-3s to make 1 gram of the good ones if your body can do that, which it won't be able to do because you're on a plant-based diet. And then you get tons of these anti-nutrients from plants that cause cravings. When I was a raw vegan, I was always hungry. I think that that's a very common occurrence. And I would say, well, that's weird. I'm going to put more coconut oil. Plants don't want you to eat them, and they cover themselves in defense systems that cause cravings. So I talk about the 5 big categories of things that are causing problems with us right now. And many plants that are common on a plant-based diet are not very compatible with humans. Like, oh, they have these vitamins. Like, yeah, they also stick to the stuff that lines the cartilage in your joints and gives you joint pain. Or they inhibit your ability to absorb zinc and magnesium and iron and things like that. And so what happens is you tell yourself you're doing this to be nice to the animals, but what you're doing is you're making sure that the animals will go extinct, because if everyone was vegan, we'd have no animals. And then 2 generations later, we'd all be extinct because we'd have no animals to make soil. Because you can't grow carrots without animal poop at the end of the day. You can do it for 20 years, you can do it for 30 years, but eventually you have to build that soil back up. What's happening on a plant-based diet is the wrong fats and lots of anti-nutrients. And that combination is kryptonite for people. And I've had tens of thousands of former vegans go bulletproof. And part of the reason I made the bulletproof diet was because I did harm to myself, including additional food allergies and worse hypothyroidism as a result of being vegan. And in terms of animal cruelty, I calculated deaths per calorie from eating a pound of grass-fed steak every day, which is a lot. You don't need to do that unless you're on the carnivore side of things, which there's an argument for that. But if you do that and the cow is grass-fed and local, unless the cow stepped on a frog, you kill less than one animal per year in all of your food. But if you eat boxes of processed soy nuggets, you disrupted the lives of whatever was going to live on that land and whatever the tractors killed. And so the number of deaths per calorie is way higher for any grain product and anything other than basically fresh picked vegetables because of habitat destruction and tractor kills. And like, I asked a monk this in Tibet. I'm not dogmatic, but I want to do what works. So I like to minimize suffering, buy from a local farmer, eat less meat, but make it grass-fed, and eat very good fats. And if you do that, you'll never have a craving during a fast. And if you don't believe anything I say, you can still be plant-based or vegan, and you can still be standard American diet. Dave, I like my industrial animals, go screw yourself. Just do intermittent fasting and you'll still improve. It works for any diet out there. And I'm happy to share the knowledge, and I've moved a lot of information. There's 3,000 blog posts and stuff like that. But what I want people to do is figure out the foods that are compatible with your biology. And if you're one of the small percentage of people who's like, you know what, a vegetarian works for me. I know people, it really does. They eat some eggs, they eat some cheese, they eat a substantial amount of butter, and magically that really works for them, and that's okay. Right? But if it doesn't work for you, don't tell yourself it's supposed to work so you'll do it even more. That's the mistake that I made. And I've certainly had conversations with vegans a lot, and there's kind of two mindsets there. One of them says you're doing it for your health, right? The evidence does not support that. And here's what's really going on, and it's intimately tied to fasting. There's a compound in the body called mTOR, and you've probably talked about it on the show before. mTOR is a signaling molecule that says grow. It says, build muscle, build tissue. And when you eat protein, a lot of protein, plant-based will raise it, but animal-based raises it much more. So when mTOR goes up, you put on muscle. But chronic elevation of mTOR equals cancer, right? So that's a bit of a problem. So one solution is say, well, I'm going to go plant-based and low protein. The problem with that is that mTOR gets suppressed, but it never goes up. So you get frailty. Like, these are the people who break their hips. These are the people who have the vegan-sized pants for men. They're like little stick legs, right? You don't want to be there. Don't eat for a while, then work out, and then eat. And what's neat is that mTOR is like a spring. You can push it down. And when it's down, it's good, except if it never goes up, it's not good. So when you push it down, there's three things that we know of that suppress mTOR. And this is how you build muscle and how you account for the difference in outcomes from vegans versus carnivores, let's say. So to suppress mTOR, fasting does it, exercise does it, and coffee does it. So what you do is eat dinner and stop eating around 6. Don't eat after dinner. So you got 4 hours of fasting before bedtime. You sleep for 8 hours. You just fasted for 12 hours. Wait another 4 hours. You fasted 16 hours. You had a late breakfast. But before you eat, do some squats. Go lift. I mean, it can be a very quick workout, just something heavy. And then you eat. And because all three of those things push the mTOR down, as soon as you eat some protein, the body says, wahoo, and it spikes the mTOR much higher. And then the exercise has a bigger impact on your tissues. So you got more exercise benefits in less time. Your mTOR was briefly elevated because you only ate once that day or twice that day, and then it goes back down and it stays down. People feel good on a vegan diet because they suppress mTOR, which is driving chronic inflammation. Problem is, you do that forever, you never get the muscles and the growth, and then you get the anti-nutrients and you get the bad fats. So it's okay to be vegan for a week. It's probably good for you. But then at the end of that week, maybe you should go carnivore. So cycles are good. And I will tell you, being all keto all the time is terrible for you. Being all vegan all the time is terrible for you. And I've done both. That's why intermittent fasting is so awesome, because you can eat both vegetables. You can even have white rice. You can have carbs. You don't have to be in keto and ketosis and all that to do fasting. It's cycling in and out. So be vegan for a day, but just don't be vegan for a year and you'll be fine. And there's new studies out that show that curiosity makes you young. Stephen Kotler talks about curiosity as being a component of flow state. I'm the same way. Like I said, I was a raw vegan. I was a devout raw vegan. Like I talk about the science in all of the books that I write. And I'm more convinced than I've ever been that no matter what we agree or don't agree on about what to eat, there's two things. One is, if you don't eat for a while every day, you're going to be better off. The second thing is that eat whatever doesn't make you hungrier after you finish eating, and you'll be better off. It's a common thing especially with keto, where constipation happens, right? And the gut bacteria can get really out of whack on a keto diet. And this is why I first went keto in the late 90s. It was called the Atkins diet, right? And I lost 50 pounds on it. The other 50 took 10 years to come off because it's inflammation that's caused by eating the wrong stuff when you're in keto, right? And then we have the modern renaissance of keto, where there still isn't a great focus on here's the right type of protein. You get people putting milk protein isolate, which is almost a waste product in the US, into their food, saying, there, it's keto because it's a protein. And you're like, no, you're doing it wrong. Like you can do better. But there's 3 hacks you can do during a fast that allow your body to stay fasted and don't make you get hangry at all. And one of those hacks is the one you're looking for. So I'm going to walk your listeners through 3 things you're allowed to have during a fast. And by the way, some people get very angry when I say you can have something during a fast. Those are people who say, but the mice in the study only had water. Like, that's because that was all you gave them. Yeah. But we wanted people to be high performance and comfortable. And I despise the idea of, when I weighed 300 pounds, of someone sitting down and saying, Dave, I want you to only have water this morning, and then you're going to go to work and you're going to show up and you're going to perform. And I couldn't do it. And if I did, it would have taken every ounce of willpower, and I would have been miserable, and I would have been hangry. This is not how to teach people to fast. And I think it's mean-spirited. So it's okay to do things that reduce your hunger and increase your focus during a fast, as long as your body's still getting the benefits. So here's the 3. First one, there is abundant evidence that black coffee during a fast makes the fast work better. The new science behind that didn't exist when I first talked about Bulletproof coffee, is that the amount of caffeine in 2 small cups of coffee doubles ketone production, even if you eat carbs at night.
Yeah.
Carbs, sugar, or protein are going to break your fast, but there's some wiggle room in there. And when you have ketones higher, it suppresses ghrelin, which is the hunger and the cravings hormone, and it raises CCK, which is the fullness hormone that was brought to you by Calvin Klein. What you find, Lewis, though, is that when you manipulate those things, the voice in your head telling you to think about food all the time starts to go away. And coffee is shown in many, many studies to be generally good for you. And there's still some people argue about that. Sorry, I just go to PubMed and Google coffee and the name of a disease and see what you find, and then make your own decision on that. The studies show that up to 5 cups a day increases longevity, and that 4 is probably better than 3. It can be caffeinated or decaffeinated, but the studies all show up to 5 cups a day makes you live longer. So there's our black coffee. The second hack is one, I'm well known for it. I'm not trying to sell more Bulletproof coffee. And I will tell you, if you use that MCT oil I've been talking about for 10 years, and I made MCT a thing, it really wasn't in the world of biohacking. If you do that and a little bit of grass-fed butter, it doesn't have to be 2 tablespoons, it can be just a small amount, it will give you a lot more ketones from the MCT, and something magic happens when you put butter in coffee. We did not know why this was the case, but when you blend butter in coffee, new research out of the University of Washington, I donated an unallocated grant to UW and said, could you please look at like water and fat and stuff? And Gerald Pollack, who's written several books about this, who's just turned 80, is a biochemist, and he said, look, when you put water next to droplets of butter fat, it forms a very thick exclusion zone. This is the way the body normally drink water. You put the water near your cell membranes, you heat the water, and it changes the water into the viscosity level of water that you need to make energy. But when you do it in a blender and then you drink it, just by having a little bit of fat in the water, your body can immediately put that water to work inside mitochondria without having to process it first. And that means you can more effectively burn fat or sugar. And this is why 15 minutes, like, oh, wow, I got ketones and I got this water I can use. And then poof, your brain wakes up. That's why you drink it in the morning and you feel the difference that you talked about earlier. So that's a good hack for fasting. But people say, well, wait, why? There's calories in there. Yes, but it doesn't raise insulin at all. And it doesn't raise mTOR at all. So you're still getting the benefits of the fast. And the third thing, this is going to be the magic one for you. No one's ever talked about this in the context of fasting that I'm aware of before. And it's prebiotic fiber. The recommended amount you should get is about 20 or 30 grams a day. Most people don't get it. Or if they do get it, they're eating tons of whole grains with all the anti-nutrients and irritants in them. So it's not good for you. So if you put a couple scoops of prebiotic fiber in water, coffee, or tea, It is carbs, except your body can't digest it, and it goes right into your gut bacteria. It feeds the good guys. You'll grow more species and more abundance in your gut bacteria, and they eat it. And in studies, they convert prebiotic fiber into short chain fatty acids called butyric acid that is pro-ketogenic. And there's dozens of studies that show soluble fiber suppresses hunger. And there's many more that show it makes you live longer. In fact, it's a core part of my anti-aging recommendation. Oh. And the one I make for Bulletproof is called Inner Fuel. I'm not here to sell Inner Fuel. I'll tell you what's in it if you want to do that. Bulletproof Inner Fuel, though, it's all packaged up. I did all the research. There's 3 different kinds of fiber in there. They're all sap from trees. And these are specific things that feed the good guys. And they have 0 flavor. So you can put it in whatever and it's very neutral, and it doesn't get all clumpy like a Metamucil or like gunky. You can't really tell it's in there. So I usually get about 40 to 60 grams of soluble fiber a day, which is way more than most people. And it's going to make sure that everything goes out pretty much no matter what you eat, the way you want it to. But most importantly, it suppresses hunger and it gives you good gut bacteria.